Okay guys, so this is part 3 of this video series, painting Perdita from Weird Miniatures. On to painting the jeans now. Now, if you want to, you can skip this video, and the reason being is that this is basically like a first take on how to paint these jeans, which I ended up just giving up on and doing it a different way, which is the next video. But there's still could be some pretty useful techniques, I guess, in this one if I'd bit more patient. But anyway, let's I'll tell you what I'm doing here. So the paint colour I'm using, this is another Vallejo Model Air colour. It's called Intermediate Blue, and I think it is the perfect colour for painting the base colour for jeans, as I think you might agree. It is it's a really nice dark but also sort of muted and desaturated blue. Much better, I guess, than any sort of blue in a fantasy paint range. You would have to sort of probably custom mix it. So what I'm doing here, I've mixed in a Vallejo Gay model colour, light grey. I think any sort of light grey colour. I've just mixed it with the blue, and that's basically going to be the way I highlight this. And I'm effectively only using these two colours, the intermediate blue and this really light grey. And so the idea I thought here was to, rather than be smooth and paint many layers of different colours, I highlight up. Instead, I would do these horizontal brushstrokes. So I get this kind of like horizontal texture sort of building up, and I think this could have worked if I'd have taken a lot more time and really deliberately done each stroke. Instead, I was almost going for like what you kind of do with a dry brush, and I end up switching to a dry brush in a bit. The reason why I ended up I wasn't ever completely happy with this look. It kind of, at some points it looked really nice, and then I'd touch it and then I'd ruin it, and then I'd try and fix it and then I'd ruin it some more. And what happened was, in the process of doing this, I actually almost built up that many layers of paint that there was actually like a three-dimensional texture on the surface, because I'd been doing all these horizontal brush strokes and horizontal dry brushing that you'll see in a bit. Eventually it got to the point where like those horizontal lines are actually three-dimensional, they're actually there. And then I end up just airbrushing the jeans in the next video, which worked really well. But because that horizontal texture is still there, it kind of looks really nice. It worked out quite well. But if I were you and you decide to, if you don't have an airbrush or you want to try and paint jeans with texture, the trick is just be really patient. Put in those horizontal sort of highlights, and if it's a bit chalky, that kind of works quite nicely. And you've just got to be really careful and be really fine about it, because if you're starting to put these little horizontal sort of lines in for the highlights, it'll end up, if they're too thick, it will just not look good. And they need to be really thin to give you that kind of denim texture, which is what I was trying to achieve. So basically, this entire video it was almost like a bit of me experimenting, because I've never painted jeans before, and this is just basically me thinking about, oh, maybe this will work. And yeah, at some points it looked really nice, but other parts didn't, and then I ended up going back and changing things, and it sort of screwed up what I already had, and basically just painted many layers, as you can tell. But I guess if at some points, because it did look quite good, you can use this technique. I will switch to a dry brush soon. Actually, it's not really my dry brush, it's actually the brush there it is, the brush I use to mix paints and clean my airbrush with. So it's completely ruined. But I tried a normal dry brush at first. I also switched to a slightly sort of damper and wetter dry brush, so I'm not really getting that much paint off, because my thinking was that if I very carefully just stroke horizontally across like bits where I want these texture to appear, because it's a bit wetter, hopefully it will produce many little fine lines, and it did kind of work it at some points. And where it went a bit too heavy, I tried to fix by doing the same thing with a darker colour, but it sort of just muddied it all up, and it just ended up just looking the blue colour but muddy and chalky, and wasn't really getting across that what I was trying to do, because I'm trying to paint this so that the thighs are worn and are brighter. It's that kind of weathered look that jeans have, so these points where the jeans are being rubbed against and bent at and stuff, they should be like lighter, and they should lose their colour. That's the kind of look I was trying to go for, your typical jeans colour. But yeah, the paint colour I think is perfect. If you want to do jeans, pick up Model Air colour, Intermediate Blue. This is for blue jeans, obviously. And again, I think it works really well with that dark grey blue that I did for the top. And it's giving this kind of, it's quite a dark, but also realistic feel overall to the clothing. So here we go. At this point, I actually quite liked that, and then I screwed it up by by thinning paint too much. And then I go back to trying to dry brush it, and this is how I built up this texture. It was just numerous dry brush layers like this, and I guess it was a happy accident that when I ended up switching and doing the airbrushing, that texture looks quite good, because I'd been sticking to this sort of horizontal line sort of thing. But yeah, if anyone has any advice or their own tips, or their own method for painting jeans, I know it's not a common thing, I guess, with a lot of painters, because they don't really, there's people that play 40,000 and Warhammer Fantasy and that kind of thing, they don't really have any miniatures that wear jeans. But if anyone has actually had an experience with this, I'd love to know how they'd go about doing it, and I'm sure there'll be other people out there who would want to know other methods and other colours used for jeans, and other techniques, because I've never done this before, and as you can tell by this video, I spent this entire time just experimenting on the actual miniature before I essentially give up and decide, what, maybe it'll look better if I go for a smoother sort of look, which worked really well, especially because it's smooth shading, which is what I was trying to get at here, but by doing it with that sort of texture. But it's also it still has that kind of texture, because I'm airbrushing on top of what I do here, which you'll see in the next video. It worked quite well. So for those people with an airbrush, I recommend, if you want to do weathered jeans, use an airbrush and skip all of this faffing around. But yeah, again, trying another dry brush. It's also good because there's quite a lot of detail on these jeans, so I wanted it to try and pick up some of the edges as well. And because I just airbrushed on top of this, the places where my airbrush didn't hit, they still had this kind of underlying textures and colours there. So as I said, it wasn't completely wasted. But stay tuned for the next video where I actually do the jeans properly rather than spend the 40 minutes it took me doing this. Okay guys, I'll see you in a bit.